Let's talk about cybersecurity. Now, I know it can feel incredibly complicated, all these acronyms, all these different products. It's a lot. But what if we thought about it differently? What if we thought like architects and engineers, and instead of just buying stuff, we focused on building something strong, something we could call a digital fortress? So let's grab our blueprints and get started. And honestly, this quote right here, it's the whole game. If you take away just one thing today, let it be this. For years, the approach was to just pile up security tools. You'd buy a firewall here, an antivirus there. It's like stacking a bunch of bricks and just hoping it becomes a wall. But the modern way, the right way, is to think of it as an integrated platform, a smart, layered, interconnected defensive system that works together. So before we can even think about laying a single digital stone, we have to look at the blueprint. This is all about a fundamental shift in thinking, moving away from that pile of tools and towards a truly cohesive platform. This is the master plan for our entire fortress. Really, you're looking at a tale of two very different approaches. The old way, that pile of tools, well, it was a mess. Each tool was in its own little silo. It would scream alerts at you all day long, creating so much noise, but none of them talked to each other. It was just chaos. The new way, the integrated platform, everything is connected. Every part of the wall talks to the gate, which talks to the guards. It's sharing intelligence, working together. It's not just about building a stronger wall, it's about building a smarter one. Think about any great fortress in history. What do they all have in common? An unshakable foundation. You know, if you skip this part, if you try to cut corners here, the whole thing is going to come crashing down. So before we get to the cool stuff like watchtowers and defenses, we have to get the foundation absolutely right. All right, so here's our construction plan, a really practical step-by-step roadmap. We start with the absolute non-negotiables, the foundations. Once that's set, we need visibility. We've got to be able to see everything that's happening. Then we adopt a zero-trust mentality, which we'll get into. And finally, we automate our defenses to make them faster and smarter. So first things first, let's lay that foundation. These 5 things, this is the concrete and steel of our digital fortress. First up, MFA, or multi-factor authentication. Just think of it like needing 2 different keys to unlock any important door. It's a simple idea, but incredibly powerful. Next is EDR, which is basically a dedicated guard station on every single computer and server. Then you've got advanced email security, which is like having a bomb squad for your inbox, checking every message for traps. Patching, that's just common sense. It's fixing cracks in the walls the second you find them. And immutable backups. Oh, this one's my favorite. That's your secret vault, a perfect copy of your crown jewels that no attacker can ever change. Okay, our foundation is rock solid. Now it's time to build upwards. We're going to construct the main defenses of our fortress, and we'll group them into 3 really clear layers: the walls, the gates, and the guards that patrol them. So layer 1 is all about controlling the border, the perimeter. This is where we manage who and what can even approach our fortress, who gets to knock on the gate, and who gets stopped at the moat. This is our very first line of active defense. You can think of this layer in 2 parts. On one side, you have your gatekeepers, the folks who manage identity. Things like single sign-on, or SSO, that's like a master keycard for your trusted citizens. Then there's privileged access management, or PAM, which protects the keys to the kingdom itself. Then on the other side, you've got your border controls. Your next-gen firewalls are the guards at the gate, inspecting all the traffic coming and going. And things like Zero Trust Network Access, or ZTNA, well, that's a guard with a very simple rule: never trust, always verify, no exceptions. But let's be realistic. What happens if a really clever attacker slips past the outer walls? What then? Well, that's exactly what layer 2 is for. This is all about the defenses you have inside the fortress to protect your most valuable assets from anyone who's already made it through the gate. So inside the walls, we deploy our internal guards. That EDR we mentioned, they're on constant patrol, watching every single device. We're also scanning internal emails and messages because sometimes the enemy is already inside pretending to be a friend. But really, the absolute most important thing here is data security. It all comes down to the data. This means first, you have to discover where your crown jewels are even kept, then you lock them in a digital vault with encryption, and finally, you use something called data loss prevention, or DLP, to make sure no one can just smuggle those jewels right out of the fortress. A modern fortress isn't just a single castle anymore, right? It's more like an empire. It has outposts in the cloud, it has allies, it relies on these complex supply chains to get its software. So, this final defensive layer is all about extending our protection beyond the main walls to secure all these critical modern parts of our kingdom. And to protect these new territories, you're going to need some specialized guards. For those outposts in the cloud, you've got tools like CSPM, which acts like a building inspector, constantly walking around, checking for unlocked doors or open windows. And for your supply chain, this is huge. You have to inspect the lumber and stone you're using to build your own tools. So things like SAST and SCA, they scan your code for hidden weaknesses before you ever use it. It's how you make sure you're not accidentally building a Trojan horse inside your own walls. Okay, we've built the foundation, we've built the walls, we've posted the guards, but a bunch of separate pieces doesn't make a fortress work. A silent defense is a useless one. So now we have to connect everything to a central command center. This is the brain, the nervous system of our entire fortress. And at the absolute heart of this nervous system is one simple, powerful idea: identity. In a modern fortress, who you are determines everything. It decides which doors you can open, what information you're allowed to see, and what actions you're allowed to take. Every other defensive tool, from the firewall at the edge to the vault in the center, is constantly checking with the identity system for orders. It's the ultimate source of truth for the entire operation. So here's how that nervous system actually works. It's a simple pipeline. Step 1, all of our sensors and guards, on the network, on the computers, out in the cloud, they're all collecting data, sending signals back to the command center. Step 2, all that information floods into a tool called a SIEM, which is basically an analyst that never sleeps, looking for suspicious patterns. And step 3, the moment a real threat is confirmed, a SOAR tool kicks in and automatically triggers a response. It can lock a door, quarantine a device, or sound an alarm, all in a matter of seconds. No human intervention needed.
All right, the fortress is built, it's wired up and connected. But a fortress, no matter how well designed, is only as strong as the people operating it. So in this last section, let's talk about how to actually run this thing day to day, and maybe more importantly, what common, costly mistakes you absolutely have to avoid.
Think of these as the classic blunders, the rookie mistakes of fortress construction. First, buying tools before you know what you need them for. That's like buying a bunch of cannons without knowing which direction the enemy is coming from. Next, logging every single tiny event without tuning your alerts. That's like telling your guards to report every single bird that flies by. It's just noise, and you'll miss the real threats. Overlooking backups and identity. That's like building a beautiful castle with no escape route and leaving the front door unlocked. And finally, having no exit plan with vendors means you're stuck with a supplier even if they're doing a terrible job. You always need a backup plan. So, after all this work, how do you even know if your fortress is doing its job? Well, you have to measure what actually matters. And it boils down to 4 things. Time. How fast can we spot a threat and shut it down? Coverage. Are all of our important assets actually being protected? Effectiveness. Are our defenses actually stopping attacks, or are they just for show? And finally, the big one. Business impact. Is our security helping the kingdom thrive, or is it just getting in the way? So let's bring this all home. The bottom line is this. Stop thinking about buying a pile of tools. Start thinking about building a single, cohesive security platform. You have to build your fortress on a solid foundation of identity and resilience. You have to make sure all of your defenses are integrated and can respond automatically. And finally, you have to measure your success, not with confusing technical stats, but with real-world outcomes that matter to your mission. And that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. Our digital world, it's constantly expanding. New threats are always on the horizon, and the borders of our kingdom are always pushing outwards. Which brings up a pretty important question, doesn't it? Is the work of building and rebuilding and maintaining our fortress ever truly finished?